Hi guys. All right. So, little update from the trip. It's been quite a day. Um, but yeah, last video I talked a little bit about why and where and stuff like that. So I thought in this video I might talk a little bit about the trip itself, what's happened and what I've seen and stuff like that. So I started with Germany, which I just went through. Yeah, I wanted to get further away from Denmark, just to get the feeling of being out there. So I stayed one night in Germany, a little south of Bremen. Yeah, tested the tent. It rained a little bit, so tried that. And just the first night of being away, although the campsite was nothing special and I wasn't that far away from home, that feeling of right now you're on the way, that slight fear and excitement of leaving everything behind. Yeah, then yeah, and I wasn't using the GPS at that time. I still had that belief that I could just go by the sun, and and I was just riding around in circles in Bremen, and it was getting late, and yeah, so that's when I took the decision to switch to GPS, because one-way streets and yeah, it was horrible. So then onwards into the Netherlands, I went like straight down the middle. Yeah, luckily I found some canals that I could follow along a little bit, get that feeling of being in the Netherlands. And I believe I saw some tulips as well. Not that great field that you see in the tourist videos. And I saw a huge field of weed, of cannabis. It was right next to the main road. It had to have been like for feed for the pigs or something like that. I can't imagine that they would just put wow. I can't imagine that they would just put a enormous field of wheat, but that was quite funny. I still regret that I didn't pull over and take the selfies, but there wasn't really a place to do it. I guess I could have, but it would have been a little iffy. But I saw it, and that was quite fun. Yeah, from Holland into Belgium. Found an amazing campsite full of Dutch people. Had an amazing experience there. I had to stay an extra day because I was hungover. Yeah, they got me so drunk. The scenery in Belgium is amazing, but the roads are horrendous. Yeah, didn't I speak? I think I told you about that in the last video. Yeah, the campsite and the dudes and the food, and yeah, that was amazing. So onwards into Luxembourg, which was the complete opposite road-wise and landscape. It was just beautiful, beautiful mountains, and the roads there are. I mean, if any of you guys ride motorcycles, spend a week in Luxembourg. I don't know if you can spend a week there, but you have to go up and down the same roads a couple of times, I guess. But the roads are, they are so good, so good. It's like yeah, racetrack quality roads, and the scenery is amazing. And I saw this campsite going through a what's it called, a valley, or with mountains on both sides and a river, and hugged up against the cliff wall was this campsite. Um, yeah, I imagine just waking up in the morning, peeping out of the tent, and you've got like that looked amazing. But I had just started driving, so I skipped that one. I actually believe that my old driving instructor talked about he drives back and forth a lot. I believe he talked about the campsite and said if you're ever there, stay there. But the itch of adventure was just, I wanted to, yeah, to go into France. Amazing to see how both the topography and the architecture changes from northwestern style into the south. Amazing people. I had. They have this 90-kilometer roads, which are quite good, and generally the roads in France are quite good. I did go a bit into the countryside where the roads wasn't that good, but it was nothing compared to Belgium. But I was driving on this main road, and you see these little villages pop up, and they all have like a church spire, and so at some point I've driven through a couple of them, but that's just going through. So I thought, okay, now I'll go and see what's it all about and explore a little bit. I went up this amazingly steep hill, and on the way up I thought, I have to get down again. It's an old bike, and the brakes, and I just didn't know. But I got up there, and it was the sleepy. A lot of the French little towns are like this sleepy. Yeah, and I saw this one dude, of course, renovating his shutters. You see the French shutters all over the place. And I asked him if I could park the bike while I went up to the church. There was this amazing view over the valleys and the little mountains. And of course I could do that, and he offered me coffee, and I am I'm allergic to coffee, so it's like a drug for me. I start running on the walls, and but it was a French little village, and he offered me I could not say no. Luckily they drink these tiny little cups, and I'm not a coffee drinker. I don't really like coffee, but that was amazing. It has like a thin layer of foam on it. I don't know how they make it, but that was amazing. Onwards towards the Pyrenees. I found a campsite just in the beginning of the Pyrenees with the infinity pool, and it was like, oh yeah, I had this horrific experience. I thought I would treat myself to like a fancy campsite with the swimming pool and all that stuff. And in France you can't wear like swimming shorts. You have to have the speedos, and I don't have those, and it was too cheap to buy any. But then I could just swim in the river, which was like yay deep. And I came unannounced, so he gave me a site next to the bathrooms, which it smelled horrible, and there were cockroaches. I've never seen a cockroach before, but they were all over my tent, and I paid like almost 50 euros for that. So I went onwards, and it got hot. It got really. I've never experienced anything like that. I've been getting used to the engine heat. They burn a little bit of. The engine heat burns a little bit the insides of my legs, and it can be quite painful when it gets hot. But driving through France at that time, it felt like engine heat just rose up and roasted me. It was, yeah. So I'm driving along over the river. I've crossed several rivers and mountains, and I saw this little campsite, and I was actually scheduled to go for another hour, but I was so hot, and I thought, why go on? Why torture myself? This is I have no schedule. I don't have to be back at any specific point. So I turned around, and it was amazing. The river was deep enough to swim in, and it was cool, and the owner was amazing, and restaurants and shopping just nearby, and it was 13 euros. I could have stayed there for some time, but yeah, these families arrived, and the whole mood of the campsite changed. It was like rowdy, just unpleasant people. So I didn't want to stay there anymore, and yeah. So then I went on to the Pyrenees and found the infinity pool thing, which was $16, 16 euros. When I woke up in the morning, I could just sort of see the Pyrenees through the trees, and of course I had to jump in the infinity pool with my bathing shorts on and hope the owner didn't see me, but I just had to swim around and watch the Pyrenees, and that was amazing. Rose up in a damp, dark morning with the thick clouds, and everything was just, yeah, but you're still surrounded by the Pyrenees, and it was, yeah, amazing, even though it rained, and the journey through the Pyrenees was yeah, wow. I could just go back and forth for a month. Yeah, I treated myself to a hotel when I got through the Pyrenees, and on the Spanish side, and I didn't even know what day it was. I actually thought it was like a normal weekday, but it turns out it was a Saturday, and there were flamingo in the backyard, and cocktails at the restaurant. So yeah, they didn't have like a room. They had like a room with bunk beds, which was, I think, 16 euros a pop. But I just needed some time for myself, so I ended up having to buy the entire room just to be sure that some dude wouldn't walk in at 10 o'clock, and I had to listen to him snore, and yeah. Yeah, so I got up this morning, and the town that I stayed in there. In Spain, there's like these little islands, and on top of the island, there's these old towns. Everything is built with big stones, and it's not brick; it's stone, and it's old. And yeah, it was amazing. So got up, thought I would go towards the Mediterranean, which is the first goal of the journey, is to jump in the Mediterranean. But the wind started picking up, and the further I got, the worse it got. And it turns out the cold air from the Atlantic is colliding with the warm air from the Mediterranean. So right around that area there is a lot of wind. So and it became quite dangerous to ride the bike, because when the luggage is stacked so high, the entire bike is like a big sail. And it isn't like any storm I know. It's like a storm with these constant wind gusts that it's just dangerous. And I actually thought that the trip would end too soon a couple of times. So I had to turn around, drive towards the Atlantic. Now I'm in like at the middle of Spain, in a city which I'm not a fan of, but there was no choice. It simply had to get off the road. I was on the freeway, which I also never do, just to get there, and between the lorries or the big trucks and the turbulence they create, and I was sort of hugging the shoulder because the wind has to go over, and I was sort of safe. But at one point the freeways split and I needed to go left, so off into the middle I went, and wow. Wow, and I didn't have anything to eat today, so my energy was really low, and yeah, I haven't been drinking the water that I should, so all levels were just, it was just a perfect storm. Um, so that's where I am now. Uh, yeah, what a day. Uh, yeah, let's see what what else this adventure brings, and guess I'll see you on the road.